The world will always remember the Punic Wars together, but one can argue that the most important, both historically and culturally, with the furthest reaching consequences, was in fact the Second Punic War. A war fought between brilliant generals and battle-hardened soldiers for a prize so important that the fate of the ancient world could reside on every single battle. It was here, in the Second Punic War, that the fate of the ancient Mediterranean was sealed, and the glory of Rome forever emblazoned upon history. At the end of the 20-year First Punic War, Carthage itself was heavily destabilized. In order to pay war reparations to Rome for the First Punic War, Hamilcar Barca, the supreme commander of Carthaginian forces, launched a military expedition into the Iberian Peninsula in order to regain old territory and capture lucrative silver mines. During this campaign, Barca's army of foreign mercenaries evolved from being a mismatched and poorly armed force into being one of the most loyal and deadly armies in Europe at the time. This newly formed and military strong Barcid Empire, comprised of Carthaginian territories in the Iberian Peninsula, was ruled over by Hamilcar's son-in-law, Hasdrubal. Hasdrubal was known as a fair and just ruler, and he signed what is now known as the Ebro Treaty with Rome. This treaty fixed the boundary between the two empires at the Ebro River, and although it looked like there could be peace between the two empires, the Celts of the Po Valley in northern Italy had begun to amass their forces for an invasion of the main Roman territories in the Italian peninsula, presumably with the help of Carthaginian backing. Sensing this potential alliance, Rome preemptively invaded the region, hoping to ward off any further potential Carthaginian growth on the Iberian Peninsula. The Romans also brought the city of Saguntum, a former Greek colony south of the Ebro River, into its fold as a protectorate. Hamilcar Barca's son, Hannibal Barca, commander of the Carthaginian forces in Iberia, was furious. He saw the actions of the Romans annexing a territory south of the Ebro River as a breaking of the treaty they had signed. Thus, he immediately attacked and began to lay a costly siege to the city. With the protectorate of theirs now defeated, the Romans declared war on Carthage, and thus began the Second Punic War. In an effort to bring a quick end to the new war, perhaps capture the marauding Hannibal, in 218 BC the Romans sent a large invasion force to northern Iberia, in the hopes of forcing Hannibal and his weakened troops into a pitched battle that they would surely lose. However, Hannibal marched his army north, across the Ebro River and towards the recently annexed and still rebellious Roman territories in northern Italy. Avoiding the forces commanded by Gnaeus Cornelius Scipio Calvus, the Roman commander sent to go track him down. Only a small Roman scouting party was able to realize what Hannibal had done and was able to report back to the Roman command to warn them. Hearing of Hannibal's march north, the Gaelic tribes in the Po Valley quickly began to rebel and destabilize the area. Realizing how dangerous the situation was, part of the Roman invasion force in Iberia was forced to return home under the command of Publius Cornelius Scipio to defend the city and its territories. The remainder would stay in Iberia and play a pivotal role in ending the war later on. It was at this point that Hannibal made his famous overland crossing of the Alps in winter. He set off with what's believed to be 90,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, and more than 36 war elephants for a planned invasion of the Italian peninsula, with the support of the Gaelic rebels. This incredible journey has since gone into legend as one of the most daring maneuvers in military history. Although Hannibal lost many men, with some estimates as high as 70,000, and a number of elephants on the journey, he still managed to catch the Romans completely by surprise. They were not expecting him for a few more months and believed a winter crossing of the Alps impossible to undertake. Quickly, Hannibal was able to surprise and overpower the Roman forces in the region, as well as inciting the whole of the Gaelic populace into revolt. The first battle of this new conflict on Roman soil was the Battle of Ticinus. Although it was a smaller skirmish, comprised mostly of cavalry forces on both sides, the Carthaginians were able to defeat the Romans decisively, and it gave the worn troops a massive boost of morale after their treacherous march through the mountains. In addition, the Roman commander Publius Cornelius Scipio was heavily injured in the battle and no longer able to command his troops. Following the defeat at Ticinus, the Roman Senate recalled Consul Sempronius Longus and his army from Sicily and moved them to reinforce Scipio's troops still stationed in northern Italy. This move came to a head at the Battle of Trebia. Longus wished to end the Carthaginians' drive into Italy with a decisive battle, and in doing so allowed his troops to fall into a clever trap placed by Hannibal. On the morning of the winter solstice in 218 BC, a group of Numidian cavalry crossed the Trebia River and began harassing the nearby Roman camp. Hearing of this, the headstrong Longus, who had been warned by the injured Scipio to try and not attack Hannibal with untrained men, hastily prepared for battle. Without any breakfast, and in the freezing sleet and snow, Longus's army followed Hannibal's cavalry. The Roman soldiers were forced to ford the icy river after them, where Hannibal's well-rested and well-fed army was waiting for the frostbitten and hungry Romans. Once all the Romans had crossed to the other side, Hannibal played his trump card, and launched a cavalry ambush that had been hiding behind a nearby hill into the rear of the Roman forces. The unprepared Roman army was surrounded and massacred. Out of the 40,000-strong Roman force, more than 20,000 were killed or captured by the Carthaginians. Following this defeat, the war was quiet till spring. In the spring of 217 BC, Hannibal decided to leave the Po Valley and march south, through a massive flooded marsh, the only unguarded route that led deeper into Roman territory. Hannibal's army marched for days through the swamp, without any place to effectively rest or set up camp. Thousands of his soldiers died from fatigue or drowned in the murky waters, including, it is said, the last war elephants Hannibal had under his command. However, Hannibal and his troops did make it, and once again surprised the Romans who thought Hannibal was marching on Rome. The Romans quickly deployed another army, this time under the command of the new consul Gaius Flaminius, to chase Hannibal down. At Lake Trasimene, Hannibal had come across a perfect opportunity for an ambush. Hoping to draw the Romans in, Hannibal allowed Roman scouts to discover what they thought was the tail end of the Carthaginian army leaving the area. Immediately, Flaminius and his forces followed in pursuit along the tight northern bank of the lake. However, Hannibal had instead placed the majority of his army in the hills surrounding the northern bank, and once the Romans had bottlenecked themselves on the shore, Hannibal attacked. His cavalry and soldiers swept down from the hills and slaughtered the Romans, who were unable to retreat with the lake to their back. Out of an initial force of some 30,000 Roman soldiers, nearly 15,000 were killed in the battle or drowned in the lake trying to escape, including the consul Flaminius himself. A remaining force of roughly 10,000 Roman soldiers managed to escape and found their way back to Rome. Horrified by the two horrendous defeats they had suffered so far, the Roman Senate took an emergency action and elected a dictator to lead them. Without the problematic political indecision common to the Roman Senate, the new dictator, Quintus Fabius Maximus, was given total power over Rome, a decision that is widely considered today to be one of the most important to the eventual Roman victory in the war. Fabius had a plan, and unlike his counterparts before him, who wished to end the war with one glorious and decisive battle against Hannibal, he decided to employ what is now known as Fabian tactics. Instead of trying to draw Hannibal into one large battle, Fabian and his troops shadowed the Carthaginians as they made their way through the Italian countryside, always holding the high ground but never attacking. Fabian focused on picking off Hannibal's supply routes, scouting parties, and any units that fell behind. This strategy worked brilliantly, and Fabian was slowly bleeding Hannibal and his army dry. However, this strategy was also supremely unpopular in Rome. They wanted Hannibal crushed with one battle before he was able to burn any more Roman territory to the ground. Eventually, Fabius was able to trap Hannibal's army in an area called the Ager Falernus. Hannibal, not wanting to fight a battle surrounded on all sides, tricked the Romans into letting him escape by coaxing their bloodlust to destroy him and his troops. The Roman people blamed Fabian for this failure, and called for the Senate to appoint a new dictator. In response, the Senate decided to appoint Fabius's Magister Equium, Marcus Municius Rufus, as co-dictator. Rufus had been in vocal disagreement of Fabius's tactics in the past, and the army was split between the two. Rufus, hoping to destroy Hannibal in one major battle like all of the people before him, was quickly ambushed by a smarter Hannibal and his forces, and Fabius was forced to intervene to save Rufus and his troops. Seeing both armies come together, Hannibal quickly retreated. Sensing his failure, Rufus knelt to Fabius once again and stepped down from his position as co-dictator. However, Fabius and his strategy was still highly unpopular among the Roman people, and in 216 BC they elected 2 new consuls to lead them, Gaius Terentius Varro and Lucius Aemilius Paulus. Neither of these new consuls wanted to continue Fabius's successful yet unpopular strategy, and thus called on the Roman Senate and people to raise the largest armies in the history of the Roman Republic to crush Hannibal once and for all. The general consensus among scholars was that the Romans were able to raise an army of over 85,000 men and some 6,000 cavalry. If true, this would have been the largest force ever fielded in the history of the Roman Republic. Regardless, they would still have to go against both the most brilliant commander of the Punic Wars in Hannibal and the most experienced military force in his continually victorious troops. Nevertheless, Fabius had done a great deal of damage to Hannibal over the past year or so, and Hannibal was desperate for supplies, especially so after he failed his initial goal of inciting the tribes of the Italian peninsula into revolt against the Romans. These two sides would come to a titanic clash of blows that has long sat in the hallows of military history, and is still sometimes today referred to as the battle.